In this series, we're going to talk about different aspects of relationships from different point of views with Dr. Sahar Monfared, Adam, Mike, Sanas. Today's topic is a very complicated topic, and not that many people are so open about to talk about it. And today's topic is about breaking up. And we have three courageous people who are sitting here and would love to share their experience. So let's start with Adam. Adam, maybe we should start with like one of your worst experiences you've had with your breakups, and just we'll take it from there.
My worst breakup experience.
How did it happen? Did you get dumped, or you dumped somebody? What was?
Well, yeah, I've had a few in my time, but to remember one of them, I tried breaking up and she wouldn't accept it, and she would say, no, I don't want to accept your breakup, and was argumentative and kind of wanted to punch me, and was like, and then I said, but I don't mean it to hurt you, I just want to be honest with you. And it really was like kind of dramatic and scary.
So Mike, do you think breakups you should give like a heads up, or should it just happen, or should you just avoid it?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because I've actually been on the other side of that, where I was engaged once, and I think I got broken up with some 11 times in about 3 months, but it was like, we're always back together like the next day. And the relationship only finally ended when, on the like 11th time I said, well, okay, all right, and I stopped fighting it. It was a little bit of that was probably my worst breakup. Now, as for your specific question, when it comes to giving a warning for a breakup, I'm not really sure about what to do with that, because a breakup is a very, there's no talking about it to let it kind of fade out. I will say that I just actually got out of a relationship recently where I was in a relationship with a woman who was just in the country for a year. She was from Israel. And so we knew that it was going to be ending. And I will say that actually made things a lot better. So if there's a way that you can say, this is going to end at a certain date, that is the best way to end a relationship that I know of. But it's kind of tricky to get into that situation in the first place.
I see. Sanas, what's your experience?
The people who I started dating, I really wanted to date. So for me, breaking up was never even in my mind. It wasn't in the vocabulary. It just left it up to God. So if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. But I always tried to make things work. I never gave up.
Never gave up. So. Me personally, I've had experiences where I tried to talk and say, okay, let's break up, but it went into a cycle of, okay, let's get back together. Let's it was like on a cycle of trying to, it wasn't being over. I wanted to finish it, I wanted to get rid of it, but she would say, let's talk this out, let's try it again, work this out together. And at some point you feel bad, you want to do it, but it's not working out. But I've had times that you slowly just keep your distance, and hopefully the girl realizes, and eventually you just stop talking. Which one do you think is better in your experience?
Well, I like you said, and I've been in so many relationships, I think, over the years, and you end up on either side of them when it comes to breakups. Either you're the one who wants to leave, or the one that's being left. And in the instances where, you're the one who wants to leave, I think the most convenient way is that you just kind of let it fade out, and you don't have to deal with the problem. You're kind of like, okay, she'll get the hint, and just walk away. But I don't think that takes a lot of courage to do. I think that person on the other side is really suffering through that of do I know, what's going on, how do I respond to this, is this for real, is this permanent, and it doesn't allow them to make their decisions versus the closure that gets. So finally at this age, I think, it's best to have that communication. It's best and not to use that approach. Now, what you do, that's on you. But I think now I try to tell myself, be frank and open and honest with them.
I see. Mike, mention your experience about your ex-girlfriend was living in Israel and you knew it was going to happen. So why did you have the relationship in the first place if you were going to know that you were going to break up?
Right, that's a question that a lot of people have asked me. And I don't know, she was someone that I enjoyed spending time with.
Mm-hmm.
And we had we built a great relationship. I used to be a believer that a relationship was about building towards, marriage and kids. And if you weren't going towards that, then what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
But as I've gotten older, I've shifted in that. And certainly my really bad experience with the engagement kind of broke that spell.
How long ago was that, by the way?
That was
Like
4 years ago.
4 years ago, okay.
Yeah. And this was the relationship I was talking about was my first serious one after that. So
Okay.
it took some time to cool off, and it was really nice actually to have a relationship where we weren't worried about where we were going to be in 10 years. We could just be in the moment.
Living in the moment.
And then, just build that experience with each other and then walk away and go about our lives. It was a kind of beautiful little thing.
Okay.
But that only works if you know that walking in, I guess.
I see. And are you still in touch with that girl, or?
We're still friends on Facebook.
Well, you don't talk. You just.
But no, she's a big believer in. I think I'm a believer in this academically, but I don't like it at all. But she's a believer in the clean break concept of no talking at all ever.
I see.
And we just are friends on Facebook, so we still have access to all the shared pictures and whatnot. That was an agreement we made. But personally, I try to stay friends with people, but it is definitely a lot easier to do a clean break. But that wasn't my decision; it was her decision.
I see. Dr. Monfort, do you have anything to add, especially with Mike said, like easy breakups, clean breakups?
Well, I think what he's alluding to is having an expectation of what you want, being on the same page when it comes to the relationship. So when there was a breakup, there was an expectation that this was come to an end, so it made that transition a lot smoother. I think what Adam alluded to is the closure. And I think with a lot of breakups, the knowing of what happened makes that process easier, because really when you have a breakup, what you're really going through is a symbolic grief. And you actually do go through all of the 5 stages of grief, whether it's the anger phase or whether it's the depression or the denial of, no, this can't happen. And you alluded to going back and forth, that we break up, get back together, we break up, get back together. That's actually the bartering phase of grief, right? This notion of, well, if only this will change, we can actually make this work. So that's actually part of the grief process until we get to the last stage, which is acceptance, and accepting that this is the reality of where we're at. But I think to get to the acceptance phase, you have to have that knowledge of what ended, what happened. For many of us, the unknown is what drives us to kind of go a little crazy, with the punching and things like that. And I think that helps.
Okay. Sometimes, do you have any, you say you always tend to try to work things out, but have you had any bad breakups that you just ended?
Yeah, long time ago. That I ended?
No, either way.
Yeah.
That you thought that is, okay, it's not going to work out, maybe I shouldn't spend time, because you have that mentality that,
Yeah.
okay, I have to work this out.
It depends. If they want to work it out, then maybe they agree to work it out. If I see it's really going bad, if they're not trying to work it out, then
Where is the break point for you?
when I've given enough and maybe I don't see any, I realize that I'm not happy and I'm wasting my time.
I see. Adam, have you had that experience where you were getting dumped, but you wanted to work things out? She gave you a chance. You went on that cycle.
I did. I had an ex that I was talking to for a while, and she was great. She was awesome and everything, and she knew it. And I think that by knowing it, and the fact that I was kind of singing to that, like to her ego and pride, I think it kind of devalued me as a person, and So you could find, like, she could very quickly, like, predict my next moves because she was so in control then. And then it was like nothing more but then a breakup. Okay, so what's the point of being together? And then it's the whole time of me trying to prove myself, and it was just disastrous. I mean, most painful thing, right? And then, but something you learn, and you never really, as much as you want to say you get over that, you don't. Like, it sticks with you, and like you always have this like thing about the situation, but you can't help it. Like, you can't. You expose yourself. You open the door. You're in it, and it rocks your world, and then you just kind of have to live day by day with it, you know.
I see. Mike, can you be in love and still break up?
Sure.
So, so what makes that situation happen? If you love somebody, why would you break up?
Well, I'll tell you. I'll throw in a story of my first serious relationship, which was when I was in college. I went to Virginia Tech, and I was dating a girl who went to UVA. Problems with that from the get-go, cats and dogs. But it was fine. But that was always like, it was a mild long-distance thing, but we grew up in the same town. Our parents still lived in the same town, so summers and winters we still had that. But then after I graduated before her, and I moved to Maryland, actually Frederick, Maryland, to work, and we kind of just realized that as much as we really cared about each other and the relationship was generally going well, we realized after a certain amount of time that both of us were very career focused, and neither of us was willing to move somewhere to take a lesser job to be with the other person. So that was the one true like mutual breakup I've ever had in my life, and that was definitely, as much as we cared about each other a lot, and then we're still reasonably connected. But it was just, this is just not going to work out as a relationship. So that's one example.
I see. What about you, sons? Did you love somebody but you still wanted to break up?
No.
Never happened.
Well, I wanted to, no. If I loved them, why would I want to break up with? I mean, if you love someone, I think that's why they say love makes you blind, because even if there are these issues, you try to make it work. You try to settle, because you know what, the grass may never be greener on the other side. Let's say you do break up and give up. You go with someone else and there's problems there. I mean, you're gonna find problems with everyone. How much willing, and doctor, please, correct me, how willing are you to make it, accommodate to be with that person? If you really love them, you'll make it work. I really believe that. For people who just have lost feelings and they just don't care and they're selfish, they shouldn't even be in relationships if they get in and then just want to break up. They're not ready, I think, and maybe it's a cultural thing, I don't know, it's my opinion, but I think if they are getting into relationships and then easily breaking up, maybe they shouldn't even be looking around maybe they should just be on their own. Because you got to be in it for the long haul. You have to, if you're easily going to be hurt by one thing and say, that's it, forget it, we're done, we're divorced, that's not how it's going to work. You're going to keep having that same pattern with the next person. I think.
Okay. Before I go to Dr. Moffat, I want to know your opinion. Have you had that experience where you love somebody but you think you should break up?
Yeah. It's funny. You talk about loving somebody and breaking up, and I think to myself, and the person that I was with, any of my former partners, I probably, if it didn't get to the point of love, like the intentions was there to love them, right? And mostly if I was with them for an extended period of time, I loved them. And you can never make that go away. You can't make the love of a person die or forget about it. You still love that person, but you know that it's not better. So yeah, I probably love the girls that I told that I loved. But I know it's better for me not to be with any single one of them, which is in the ballpark of a couple thousand. I'm just kidding.
Can I just ask you, why? What's one really good reason you had to break up with someone? And you just...
I mean, there's so many. There's so many.
Okay,
distance,
give me one example.
Priority,
Okay, distance.
Religion. I mean, I don't even think religion's a relevant question, but
Sorry,
it
can
becomes...
I just... So distance, for instance, I have been with someone for 7 years. They need to, work, and they need to go overseas. and we've been making it work. And you know, I think again, it's an easy way to cop out of a situation. I think if you want to, you'll make it work. I think it's a selfish, easy way to go is to give up and say, this isn't working because of X. Y. You never loved that person to begin with. And I'm just going to say that.
Well, I'm going to,
For all those people,
well, I'm going to, I guess.
Sorry, it makes me angry because I'm very much into, if you're going to get involved with someone, you got involved with them for reasons. There are going to be challenges across the road in your relationship, whether that person needs to move for a little while or go somewhere for work or maybe not see you as you thought they would at the beginning. You signed up for it. You put up with it. You get through it. You love them, and then that's it. I mean, there's no other way. If you want to go the other way, just be on your own. Don't get other people involved. If you're going to get them involved, go for the long haul.
Well, I think sometimes people enter relationships and then throughout the relationship it evolves, right? So you may have started in the same location and through work, like you had mentioned, or just opportunities and stuff, we drift apart and different opportunities present itself. And I think we all, when we're in a relationship, have what I call deal breakers. A majority of us have maybe about 5 true deal breakers. And I think what happens when we talk about loving someone but still breaking up with them is those deal breakers come into effect, right? So for you, being connected, having someone local where you're able to see them on a regular basis may be something that you need in order to feel connected and interact with that person on a regular basis. And if that basic need or deal breaker is not present, then you're more likely to break up. For you, you may be able to be okay with that distance because that might not be part of your deal breaking list. So I think it goes to whether it's a deal breaker for you or not that will determine what one person has on their list may be different than someone else. So I think, I don't know if it necessarily goes to how much you love them or not. I think it just goes to can you tolerate this, and is this a true thing that you're able to sacrifice and put the other person's needs or the need of the relationship prior to yourself.
What about deal breakers in marriage? You know, you've married somebody and you've been together for like 5, 6, 7 years. She has a point of view that, okay, you signed up for it, you have to be there, you have to do that.
Yeah.
Is there deal breakers in marriage?
Absolutely. I think what happens quite a bit is sometimes people enter not only relationships, but by extension marriages, thinking that either they themselves could tolerate something or ignore something that is a true, at the core, deal breaker for them, or whether they're able to get the other person to change their mind. I think the most common one that I have encountered is having a child, right? One partner may want a child while the other does not want a child. So you can still say, oh, I love this person, I'm really going to try to make this work. I can sacrifice being a parent, or okay, I'll think about having a child, whatever way you want to go about it. And when you actually long term, when you get in it and you've been around for 5, 7, 10 years, and that core deal breaker aspect will still be there. That's just not going to go away. And that's when you have this realization of, I can't do this any longer.
I see. Mike, you mentioned like in your past relationships, you've been with relationships that you've done, like you've broken up, they had like 11 breakups throughout the relationship. Why do you think that happens? And does age matter in that fact, or it's just?
Well, I mean, age certainly plays.
Why do you go back?
It's one of those things where I think that one of the things that you mentioned was when you get into a relationship, you get into it for a reason. I think for a few of my relationships, I could pretty easily quantify that reason as being because I was young and stupid. So there's that to consider. But as for why that happens, I think there's a question of hysteresis here, where it takes, there's a certain threshold of goodness to jump into a relationship, and then there's a certain threshold to change out of it. Loyalty only goes so far, and why you get that situation is because you're kind of on that line, I guess. You're in between, the lines of one person and the line of another person. And you get this back and forth, and people feel this sense of loyalty to the idea of the relationship, and that fills you with that sense of guilt, and it's really easy to go bounce back and forth. There's denial, as you said. I think that's a really good point. There's the 5 stages of grief. But that I think is what's happening. Is just there's a lot of turmoil and there's a lot of resentment, and it's just an overwhelming emotional sense. And that was particularly made more difficult because it was the first time we had both been engaged, and that was like a whole different level of commitment that we were trying to wrap our heads around. And it was like walking away from that. It seems like way worse than walking away from a relationship because we made a promise. It wasn't quite the same as marriage. It's in that in-between state. So it was really hard, even as things were getting really bad, it was really hard to break that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think happened 11 times?
Because I am very persistent.
Okay, so it's like something on your side, being persistent.
I mean, if I hadn't been so, because I really had it locked, because things started getting bad. And I'll tell you, one of the ways that I personally react when situations start getting difficult, when I'm at work and we have a deadline that's coming up and it just gets really hard to get out of bed in the morning, is to forget about why I'm doing it. Is to just drive that away from my head, make it so I can't rationalize my way around it. This is something that I'm doing. And we're going to power ahead. So I erase all the reason behind it, so there's no way to reason my way out of it. And that's something that I did there, was I locked it in my head that this was something that we were doing. And I would rethink things in a while maybe, but we were going through a rough patch, and we're going to stick it out. Mm-hmm. And so then, as things started getting worse and worse, I was just going to stick it out and stick it out and stick it out until finally I broke. Mm-hmm. I made it, it was a, you bend not break is better, but I was setting up in a break or nothing mentality. And that's why that happened, because she was not in that mentality. She was willing to walk away. And I was like, no, we decided we were going to do this. Mm-hmm. We're going to do this. Very unhealthy mentality.
Well, I think
I would love to talk to her, because she got in this engagement. I want to really know what she was thinking to just walk away when you were that persistent. And I don't know, maybe it's just different females, but to hear that you really tried, that means a lot. And maybe she's just not mature enough to be in any kind of relationship. And I think the maturity goes with you and not her, that's my opinion.
I mean, you might be right, but I mean, regardless of that, it was not going anywhere pleasant. It was spiraling out.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
I think the yo-yo effect is what I call it, of going back and forth in a relationship. And I think a lot of times, we tend to do that when there is, as we call it, there's nothing wrong with the other person. I think when there is significant things like someone is verbally or physically abusive, it's a clear cut, right? We can just kind of walk away and say this person was verbally abusive, physically abusive, so I can walk away and you're okay with it. I think when you look at it and say there's really no reason, the logic kicks in, right? There's really no reason to walk away from this relationship because she's a good girl, we get along, we can have a good life together. And I think we tend to stick around a little bit longer in those relationships, and those relationships, in my experience, are sometimes the hardest ones to get past, because logic kicks in again and we think about, but if only am I willing to give up X, Y, and Z in order to, just because, right? Because I just don't feel it. And I think that's where the importance of recognizing what your emotional connection is in that experience. Because I think what you're talking about is a very logical aspect, right? You're looking at him and saying, well, he's putting in a lot of effort, so she should, by default, be appreciative of what he's doing and how much he's committed to this and stick around. But I guess what I would challenge you to think about is, one, where's her emotional connection? She may not emotionally be there. And two, is it really fair to him? For him to be in a relationship where he's with someone who's stuck around because he's sure is committed to her. And I think you have to kind of look at the emotional connection there. That's really important.
I don't know, have you been in that kind of situation where you were being persistent, you just didn't want to end it?
In my younger days, sure. I was, there was my like, I would say not first real relationship, because I think I was like 19 or 18. So it was like the relationship that I thought it was serious, the first serious relationship. And I was moving to Florida for school, for law school, and she was here, and I was pushing. She would say, well, no, let's just break up, let's just break up. And the fact that she was so strong emotionally and that she was like, to walk away was so attractive. Like, I was like, this girl.
But was that a challenge? Did you perceive that more of a challenge than you really wanting to be with her, than your pride kicking in and the challenge of, oh no, she cannot get away?
Yeah.
Because she can't be stronger than me.
Right.
If she really wanted you, she probably wanted to date other people.
So no, she you're right. The challenge was attractive. So then I kept saying, okay, so I kept chasing, and then I said, okay, well, I'm moving to Florida, and she said, okay, well then good, bye. And I said, no, but you should come live with me in Florida. Wrong move. So then it just went downhill. I mean, she moved to Florida, and I'm like, all right, I caught, you know how the dog caught their car, they're running, you know, finally, the car was running, I mean, it was going. So when we went down there, it only took like 6 months for us to like almost.
Well, and I think it goes back to the logic that you were talking about a little earlier, right? You didn't stop and think what this actually means, the implication of us sticking together, moving down to Florida. It was more of kind of along the line what you were saying is, we're going to follow this, and this is the decision we're going to make, and we're going to make it work. And that's what you're supposed to. And I think that's the biggest word of the day, I would say, is what you should and supposed to do, right? You entered the relationship with a thought process of this will be and this will be the ending, and you didn't really look at the flexibility of, okay, now I got what I wanted, what do I do with that?
Yeah.
You said when I used to be younger back in the days, what has changed? Does
11 years
age matter?
Yes,
or?
Now, you know, you become.
So you're not attracted to that whole concept
chase.
of.
No, the challenge is there. The chase is real, but it's now. It's like it's the major leagues. You know, now you're talking about like all-star. Because as you're young, you see the challenge, you don't recognize it. Now you see the challenge, but you know how to counter it, and then they challenge harder, and then now you get into. Now she gives a little bit more, so it's not like, it's not that.
So you're saying you would if you were in the same situation, you would still be persistent?
No. So this was a very simplistic, I don't like you, get away, and I was like, I love you, stick with me. If it's like that, I know, I'd be like, okay, this is too much effort, plus it's not gonna get, like, it only gets a little bit better and then it gets worse, but at least I need to get somewhere where she's like, yeah, I'm interested, you're cool. So the challenge has to be at a whole different level, like, for me to entertain that type of idea. I don't fall for those things because I've gotten the result, like, I've trialed that, done it, and so now I'm like, I try to stay away with it.
When does the challenge and chase switch over to compromise?
Is that a question?
Oh, and
Anybody?
When does the challenge and chase
switch compromise?
See, that's a complicated question for a very simple,
I like to
simple person
compromise
like me.
right out of the bat. That's what I do. Compromise right out of the bat. I'm sorry. I don't know how to answer that.
So I had this conversation last night with a girl, and she was talking, and she's older, not older, younger than me, but a little bit like not 21. Just, yeah, I'm 30. But anyway, so we were talking, and she said, you know, she asked me questions like, tell me about yourself, your job, this, and every question I was giving the wrong answer, but something interesting. So she'd be like, what do you do? I'm an astronaut. You know, how old are you? 47. You know, like, where are you from? Oh, that's the most exotic island. And she was like, you haven't answered one single straight question this whole time I've been asking you questions for 30 minutes. I was like, but you've been talking to me for 30 minutes now, so I can probably get you to talk another. So like, you know, understand when I said that challenge, the reason I did it is because it's ineffective. It's not because it's by survival of the fittest. I don't think that, and why we're playing those games and doing those challenges is not because we want to, but because the game is that's what it's called for. And then the compromise issue of it, you never compromise anymore because, like you said, and we were talking about it earlier, because of the quantity now. We've got every system in the world, in fact, like technology, Tinder, it's WhatsApp, all these, like whatever they are now, Bumble, and you just one swipe away, the next one's on the way. And it's unfortunate because I talked to this with my dad, and my dad goes, I am so sorry that this is your generation, because you guys you have not even understood the concept of compromise.
But I think that is why we goes back to the topic of today, which is the breakup. Because at some point the chase ends.
Right.
And once you get, it's like the cat and the mouse, right? Once the cat gets the mouse, it's over. And I think the fizzle effect happens, because then you're no longer looking at the relationship for the nuance of it and the spark of it, versus, all right, I got what I want, now I'm off to the next challenge or chase. When you start compromising, when you're really actually, let me preface by saying, committed to the relationship and want that relationship, when you start compromising is when you're more likely to stick around when there is heart issues or things that are problematic that happens.
I see. Sometimes I know you're kind of that person you just mentioned, that you will be persistent on keeping the relationship and all that stuff. What if it's the opposite? Has that first of all, has that happened? And if it was in the situation you don't want to be in that relationship, but the other person is being persistent, would you like that?
Yeah, I would like it. I think if they put up a good fight, it means something. They want me around. They don't want me to give up. That takes courage.
Okay. And have you had that situation that, for example, you're kind of in a turmoil in a relationship? You still love that person. You don't want to break up, but you want to just give it a try, see what kind of response you get. Have you done that before?
Not really. So be in a relationship, don't love them?
No, you love them. It's in turmoil, and
It's some turmoil.
and you are just you just want to test, like, if the other person still wants to be in this relationship or not, and you just
try to break up.
Yeah, just to see the other, because that has happened to me.
Yeah, sometimes.
Like the girl says, like, I'm in my exams, like back in the college days, I'm studying, I cannot keep up with the messages, I cannot talk as much because I'm so focused. And my whatever ex-girlfriend comes and say, hey, can we break up? And I said, oh, okay, yeah, let's do it. Since you're being so considerate of my time, let's do it. But after that, she was just being sorry, like, I just wanted to see your reaction and all that. Have you done that, Mike?
No, I think that's horrible.
Well, I think that goes.
To answer you, I do it just sometimes to see how like much. It's a little bit of a test.
How did it end up being? Like, did the other person?
It gets their attention for sure. Now, if they might get angry that I just did it, or if they're used to me doing it, they might not even.
I see.
Predictable.
But I think that's that goes to playing games.
Yeah.
In the relationship, right? You're testing the other person of if it, and goes back to the shoulds that we should try to avoid. If the person loves me enough, they should want to text me. If they love me enough, they should make that time for me and sacrifice to be with me. And recognizing my needs. But I think where I would kind of say be cautious about is, remember, we go back and I say we all have some basic needs that we need to have in a relationship. But what we don't talk about is how do we communicate those needs, right? Playing those games, kind of like going roundabout, is a very passive-aggressive way of basically saying to the other person, I'm not feeling valued in this relationship right now, I'm not feeling wanted or needed in this relationship right now, or simply, I need more time from you in this relationship. But we ignore all of that and we go roundabout and in a passive-aggressive way say that. So it's really kind of going back to the basic of what are my key values and what are my deal breakers when it comes to a relationship. And what you're talking about is a key deal breaker for many, which is time and effort that is needed to be invested in a relationship.
I see. One last thing I wanted to touch before we finish up, before we wrap up. I'll start with Diana and then we go down the line. How should a breakup be done? Should it be person, text message, phone call, email? So
Facts.
Very old
What
school.
is facts? Facts, I think, is effective.
Sticky.
With these day and age, you just write on it, CC2 and car. No, I'm kidding. I'll adjust that. But just one thing I want to pinpoint, because I think it was really critical we just talked about. And I think we did a circle, and a circle we all watched and noticed it, was about Sana's comment. She said, I don't have a problem that this guy's long distance. We're making it work. but then I'm playing games to see if he still likes me, and then I'm trying to attract and see if he he wants me enough because I need his time and attention, but yet I'm not going to abandon ship and run away from it. It's all good, it's all dandy, but at the end of the day, if you're having those issues, to have to make up like some way of seeking attention or approval or getting that person's time, it shows that you might have to reconsider, I think, the relationship as a whole. To teach that.
No. Hold on. Let me just comment. Those two things that I said happened at different points in the relationship. So maybe those tests I did a lot in the beginning. It led to this now. Now we know that we don't need to play those games, and now the sacrifice is happening with the distance. So it's nothing. Anyways. But no, I appreciate it.
Yeah, ironic that you
I
say you have
appreciate
to play games and then
it was very perceptive.
Okay, so
anyway, but back to
Thank you.
my concept about breakups. I think the luxury, the way to do it easily is to obviously you send a text message. It was good. It was good seeing you. That's terrible, and the person's hurt. But you should do it with slow music. Romantic. Put a candle, a little bit of wine.
make it like a date.
Make it like a date. And be
Last
like,
dinner.
this is your last dinner. I hope you enjoy it. If you
And
can.
I forgot my wallet, so.
Oh yeah.
And the way my bank account works, I can't. No, just kidding. But there's a joke about it. No, I think just be upfront and straightforward about it in person is best.
Well, but have you done that?
No, I've never done it. I've never done it, so I don't know how it
Are you sure you've never done it? Because you
gotta
went
let
to details.
He
and,
knows
like,
how he should do
it
it,
looks
but
like
it's
you
hard to
lived
do
it up.
it that way, I think.
It's very
It's crazy.
So thank God that I'm single,
He doesn't get
and I
punched.
say this to the viewers at home and everyone around, that I can say these things. I'm not married, never been married, so I can get away with a lot, right? Until you get married, and then or you're engaged and you got a girlfriend watching. Now you can. So yes, I think I've tried every single method. There is no right or wrong. They're all like these breakups are breakups. They're all-
Mike, what do you think? What's the right?
I disagree. There's a right way to do it, and that's to sit down and have an honest, upfront conversation. And you're right, it is incredibly difficult to do.
Did you ever break up with anyone?
Yes.
Okay, so how did you did it that way?
Yes.
That's weird.
And it's horrible and it's awful and you're gonna cry and it's gonna be really nasty. But I think that's not just true of breakups. That's true of any problem or success in a relationship. Is you got to sit down and have just one-on-one. Here's what we're looking at. Let's talk this out.
For example, don't you have that fear of getting cold feet and then be like, oh, okay, maybe we should keep this going. But versus if you would have done it in text message, it would have been like a quick done, no crying involved, no convincing involved.
You got to be psyched up for it, and that's when you're having a tough conversation like that. That's I think we talked about earlier on this about should we have a warning for breaking up, and I think that it's reasonable when you're going to have a conversation like that to say, look, this is how I'm feeling about this. I don't think this is going where I want it to go. So I think we should talk about it, and you write down before you walk into that conversation. You write down what's on your mind. So you can have a reminder in the middle of it. And it is very difficult to be strong. I will admit, there was one time that I broke up with a girl. I said I've done it before, I haven't done it every time.
Mm-hmm.
There's one time that I broke up with a girl over the phone. She was a few hours away, so it wasn't like I was, anyhow, but she over the phone, and I had another friend with me, kind of encouraging me through the process.
That was a female friend or a...
No, it was a male friend. It was my oldest friend, and he was like, "Dude, you need to break up with her." And I was like, "Yeah, but I just really don't want to." So he was, as I was talking through, I kept looking at him and he was like, "Do it, do it."
That's good.
So sometimes that can be necessary, but and obviously, there's a lot of variance in people and a lot of variance in situations. So there's no one size fits all. But in terms of the best outcome of how people feel about things and about having the most, because it's good sometimes to have that out of like, wait, this is a solvable problem. Sometimes it'll lead you into a trap. Sometimes it's a very positive thing to have that out because the out could be good. So one-on-one upfront conversation is the best way to go, but I will admit I haven't always done that.
Okay, what's your take, Sam?
I'll make it brief. So you guys have seen Sex and the City, right? The movie or the show?
Sure.
Just sticky.
Just do it on a Post-it.
Close
Best
up.
way.
That's it. You really believe in that?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can't do this.
Make it easy, better than text message. So we officially run out of time. So Dr. Monfer, as a wrap up, can you make a statement as general
Sure.
breakups on what they've discussed?
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'll say is there's typically two types of breakups that we have. One which is more of a traumatic breakup, which is there is something that was emotionally charged that caused it, whether it was a cheating, whether it was some kind of abuse, something like that, that was unexpected, right? And we break up, and those are very unpredictable and just kind of happen and we move forward. The other one, which is that long lingering back and forth, do we get together, when do I do it, how do I do it, where there isn't anything traumatic per se, but it just isn't working out. Now with those, I would say there is actually signs. So by the time you sit across the table from that person to have that discussion, there really shouldn't be a surprise, because you really, in theory, should have already discussed, this need of mine is not being met. You're not doing this for me, right? And notice that the words I'm using is about me. This isn't working for me, right? And in that scenario, there should not be a shock value to it. But I think what happens is quite a bit, we don't tell them those needs. So all of a sudden we keep it in, and then we explode and say, I'm breaking up, and the other person seems kind of caught off guard, like, where's this coming from? So just be mindful of, if you wanted to work or break up in a healthy way, you really need to be telling them, my needs are not being fulfilled. And when the breakup happens, you really do also need to go through all the stages of grief, knowing that there is that part of, I can't believe this just happened, the anger, I can't believe this person did this to me, that bargaining, but only if they do this, I promise I'll get back and I'll be better, I'll make more time, and then that depression phase of, I'm really depressed because now I got to start all over again, I don't want to go on Tinder again, I don't want to do the random questions of what's your favorite color, and then the acceptance of, all right, this is really happening and it's better for me. So I think acknowledging that it is a symbolic grief, a symbolic death, because it was someone you invested some time, energy, and even some emotional connection to, helps the breakup transition and makes it healthier for you.
Okay, great. I guess we just have to end it here. Thank you so much for your input, and thank you guys for sharing your experience, and thank you for being with us. True love isn't found, it's built.